I noticed her before I ever meant to. Not because she tried to be noticed, but because she had that kind of presence that made silence rearrange itself around her. Every evening, just before dusk, she'd step out onto her porch with a cup of tea. Sometimes she wore a loose sweater, sometimes a robe that looked like it had known better nights. And I, in my upstairs window, would tell myself I wasn't watching, only happening to look up as the streetlights flickered on. Her name was Clara, though I didn't know that yet. I just knew her laugh traveled strangely far, even when no one else was around to hear it. The first time she spoke to me, I almost didn't realize she was talking to me. "You're always up there," she said, glancing up from her garden. "Don't you ever get tired of pretending to read?" I was 22, full of words but short on replies. "I like the view," I said, instantly regretting it. Her smile tilted, sharp, knowing. "I bet you do." Something unspoken landed between us, as real as the fence that separated her yard from mine. Days turned to weeks. I started timing my errands around hers, without meaning to, I told myself. The sound of her shoes on pavement became a kind of clock I trusted more than my own. Sometimes she'd wave. Sometimes she wouldn't. But when she did, it stayed with me longer than it should have. I learned her rhythms before I learned her name. How she hummed when the mail was late, how she bit the inside of her cheek when thinking, how she looked at the world like it used to be closer to her heart than it was now. One evening, rain threatened but never came. She was standing by her porch light, holding a book she wasn't reading, tracing her finger along the spine as if to remember something. I was about to turn away when she caught me again. "You're quiet tonight," she said. "So are you." Her head tilted slightly. Maybe that's why I noticed. The space between us felt thinner than air. My pulse sounded too loud in my ears. She took a few steps toward the fence. "You remind me of someone," she murmured, almost to herself. "Who?" She looked up, eyes catching the dim gold of the porch bulb. "Someone who used to listen." I didn't know what to say to that, or if I was supposed to. The moment hung there, soft and electric, like a note she hadn't decided to stop playing. She walked closer, her hand brushing along the top of the wooden fence until her fingers found the space between the boards. Without thinking, I stepped forward too, the damp air carrying her perfume, something warm, like amber and memory. Our fingers didn't touch, not exactly. Just close enough that I felt the heat of her skin. "You're different," she said quietly. "Most people rush through moments. You wait for them." I didn't mean to. I know. Her voice had that mix of apology and invitation, the kind that makes you forget which is which. And then she smiled. A small, knowing thing. "You always were my favorite distraction." I opened my mouth, not sure what I meant to say. But before I could answer, a door creaked open from inside her house, a man's voice calling her name. She froze, the warmth draining from her face, fingers slipping away from the fence. "Good night," she whispered, barely audible. The porch light flicked off, leaving me in the kind of quiet that keeps breathing long after it should have stopped. I didn't see her for 3 days after that night. The porch stayed dark, the garden chair empty. Every time I passed her house, I told myself not to look, and always did anyway. When she finally appeared again, it was morning. She was crouched by the fence, sleeves rolled up, hands covered in soil. Her hair was tied back loosely, a few silver strands catching the light. "Morning," she said, not looking up. "Hey," I replied, trying to sound casual, as if I hadn't noticed her absence. "You disappeared." I almost laughed. "I thought you did." Her smile was small but real this time. "I had company." It didn't last. Something about the way she said it, flat, practiced, made me realize she wasn't talking about a one-time guest. More like a pattern. She wiped her hands on a towel, then finally met my eyes. "You ever notice how quiet it gets after people leave?" I nodded, unsure if she meant that as a question. Later that week, I saw her again, this time by the mailboxes, balancing grocery bags that looked too heavy for her frame. "Let me," I said, already reaching for one. She hesitated before letting me take it, her fingers brushing mine. It wasn't much, just skin against skin, but it sent a strange kind of charge up my arm. Inside her house, it smelled faintly of tea and rain-damp wood. Everything was neat but lived in, books open on tables, a sweater draped over a chair. "Thank you," she said, setting the bags down. Then, as if to fill the silence, "My husband used to do that. Before he stopped noticing the little things." I turned to her, unsure if I was supposed to respond. She looked embarrassed, running her hand through her hair. "Sorry. I don't know why I said that." "It's fine," I said softly. "Sometimes it's easier to tell strangers." Her eyes flicked up at me, curious, studying. "You don't feel like a stranger." The room felt smaller suddenly. I could hear the faint ticking of a clock, the sound of her breathing. She stepped closer, just enough that her shoulder brushed mine as she reached for the tea kettle. The touch was brief, accidental maybe, but she didn't step back right away. "Do you take sugar?" she asked, voice quiet. "I don't mind it bitter." Her lips curved, almost teasing. I should have guessed. We talked for a while, about books, music, nothing that mattered and everything that did. She laughed at something I said, then caught herself, like she'd broken a rule neither of us had agreed on. When I stood to leave, she walked me to the door. The hallway was narrow, we had to pass too close. My shoulder brushed her arm, and she didn't move away. She looked up at me, the faintest tremor in her breath. "You shouldn't be so kind," she whispered. "Why not?" "Because I'll start to expect it." For a moment neither of us moved. The air felt suspended, as if touching it too roughly would make it shatter. Then she smiled, tired and beautiful. "Good night, neighbor." I stepped outside, and before the door closed, she pressed her hand against the frame, not to stop me, not to hold me back. Just enough to let me know she almost did. For a week, the air between us changed. She still waved when we passed, still smiled sometimes, but there was something careful in it, a new distance, deliberate and precise, like she was drawing boundaries with invisible chalk. I tried not to take it personally. But every time her curtains moved, every time her voice carried through the garden, I felt that small ache in my chest again, the kind that reminded me how close we'd come to something neither of us wanted to name. It happened on a Saturday. I'd been fixing the old fence between our houses when she came out, hair pulled back, sunlight catching the edges of her face. "You're making me look bad," she said lightly. "I've been meaning to fix that for months." "I don't mind," I said, hammer still in hand. "It's something to do." She leaned on the post, watching me. "You work too hard for someone who doesn't get paid for it." "Maybe I like helping." Her eyes softened. "Or maybe you like me." The words came out before she could take them back. The silence that followed was sharp, alive. I froze, half smiling, waiting for her to laugh it off. She didn't. Instead, she stepped closer, brushing a splinter from my sleeve. Her hand lingered too long. "You're dangerous when you're kind," she whispered. A phone buzzed from inside her pocket. She flinched, stepping back so fast it made the air snap. "I should get that." I nodded, pretending I didn't notice her trembling hands. "Yeah, of course." She turned away, answering in a low voice I could barely hear. "Hi. Yes, I'm home." "No, it's fine. I was just—" Her tone changed, softer. Then quiet. Whoever was on the other end said something that made her jaw tighten. When she hung up, she didn't turn around. "Everything okay?" She hesitated. "It's just complicated." The word landed heavy. That night, rain came in again. I heard the knock before I even processed it, 3 quiet taps on the door. When I opened it, she was standing there, soaked through, hair clinging to her face. "I shouldn't be here," she said. "I know." She stepped inside anyway. The room was dim, just the hum of the fridge and the sound of her breath. She reached out, her hand brushing against my arm, not a caress, not yet, but something searching. "Clara," I said, barely above a whisper. Her eyes met mine. "Don't." But she didn't move away. We stood there, close enough to feel each other's heartbeat. Her fingers rested against my sleeve, her lips parting just slightly, and for a moment, the world narrowed to that impossible space between us. Then, headlights swept through the window, someone pulling into her driveway. She stepped back fast, pulse racing. "It's my sister," she breathed. "She has a key." I didn't know what to say. She looked at me one last time, that same almost smile, that same silent ache. "You never saw me tonight." And then she was gone, leaving only the smell of rain and her warmth still clinging to my arm. For days she avoided me again. No porch lights, no half-smiles through the curtains. I told myself I should be relieved. Whatever almost happened had been too much, too close. But relief never came, only the quiet. Then one evening, I saw her walking back from town. No umbrella, no coat. The rain was light, but she didn't seem to care. I met her halfway down the street. "You'll catch cold," I said, already pulling off my jacket. She looked up, raindrops clinging to her lashes. "I didn't mean to be out this long." "Here." I tried to hand it to her. She shook her head. "No, you'll freeze." "I'm fine." "Stop being kind," she said, voice trembling. "It only makes it harder." Her words hit harder than the rain. "Harder for what?" She looked away, jaw tightening. "To pretend this doesn't matter." We stood there on the sidewalk, wet and shaking, but not from the cold. "I've been trying to stay away," she said. "You make me feel like I'm someone I shouldn't want to be again." I swallowed. "And what if I don't want you to stay away?" She closed her eyes like it hurt to hear. "You're too young to understand what that means. Try me." Her breath hitched. When she finally looked at me, the mask she wore, the calm, careful composure, was gone. "Do you think I don't notice?" she said quietly. "The way you look at me. The way I start waiting for it." For a second, either of us breathed. Then she stepped closer. Close enough that I could see the water bead against her collarbone, smelled the faint trace of her perfume, something warm, familiar, unbearably human. "I shouldn't," she whispered. "You already are." The rain softened, turning to mist. She reached up, her hand hovering near my face, not touching, not yet. Her thumb brushed away a raindrop that wasn't really there. "You don't know what you're doing to me," she said, voice unsteady. "Then tell me." Her laugh came out cracked, like she was breaking open in real time. "You remind me what it's like to want again. To be seen. To feel alive." I took a step forward, barely inches between us now. Her hand came to rest on my chest, not pushing away, just there. My heart hammered against her palm. "You'll regret this," she said. "Maybe." Our foreheads touched, the gentlest collision of fear and wanting. Every instinct screamed to close the distance, to finish what weeks of silence had started. But before I could move, her phone rang. The sound sliced through the moment like glass. She stepped back, breath unsteady. "I have to, don't," I said, too late. The rain started again, harder this time, blurring her outline as she turned away. Just before she left, she looked over her shoulder and said the one thing that would keep me awake all night. "If you touch me next time, I won't stop you." The next morning, everything looked ordinary again, the street dry, the fences standing, the sun too bright. But the air between our houses felt different. Like a thread had been pulled loose and neither of us knew how to tie it back. I hadn't seen her since the rain. Not until her car pulled into the driveway late that afternoon, someone else in the passenger seat. A man. He climbed out first, laughing at something she said, carrying a box of papers toward her porch. I froze halfway up the sidewalk, pretending to check my phone. When she saw me, her smile faltered for just a second, but it was enough. "Morning," I called, voice too steady. "Hey," she said, that practiced warmth returning. "This is Mark. He's helping me with repairs." The man cut in, extending his hand. "Neighbor, right?" I nodded, shaking it. His grip was firm, his grin easy. Too easy. "Nice to meet you." I managed. Clara turned away first, unlocking her door. I caught her reflection in the window, tight shoulders, eyes down. Whatever I'd been telling myself about what we were, it shifted. That evening, as the light faded, she knocked on my door. I shouldn't be here, she said again, but she came inside anyway. I didn't speak, I just waited. Mark's not. She stopped, rubbing her hands together. He's my ex-husband. He's been helping me sort through the house papers. We're finalizing things. Finalizing? She nodded. Divorce. Finally. It should have made things simpler, but it didn't. I took a breath. Why didn't you tell me? She looked up sharply. Because it's not your problem. It feels like it is. Don't make it that. Her voice was sharper than she meant. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with all the words we hadn't said, all the things she couldn't afford to admit. Then she stepped closer, her hand brushing past me as if reaching for something unseen. You think this is easy for me? She whispered. You standing there, looking at me like that? Like what? Like you don't know you're already under my skin. The words hung between us, raw and trembling. Her phone buzzed again, another message from him, probably. She didn't check it this time. Instead, she placed it face down on the counter, eyes never leaving mine. If I open that door, I can't close it again. Then don't open it, I said quietly. She exhaled, not in relief, but defeat. Her hand trembled as she brushed her hair back, the movement exposing the line of her neck, the small pulse there. I reached up without thinking, fingertips brushing a raindrop-shaped earring. Her breath caught. We both froze, staring at the space where my touch had been. She whispered, You're going to ruin me. Maybe we'll ruin each other. Her lips parted, but before she could answer, a knock came from her front door. Loud. Urgent. She stepped back, heartbeat visible in her throat. He wasn't supposed to come tonight. And just like that, the fragile world we built cracked open again. The knock came again, harder this time. She turned toward the door, panic flashing across her face. You have to go. Clara, please, she hissed, her voice shaking. If he sees you here. I took a step back, but not toward the exit. Toward her. Her breath caught. The hallway was narrow, the air thick with rain and fear and everything we hadn't said. I'm not hiding anymore, I said quietly. She stared up at me, eyes bright, angry, afraid. You think this is simple? That wanting someone means you can just take them? No, I said. But I think pretending not to, that's what's breaking you. For a moment, the world stilled. The knock stopped. The house went quiet except for our breathing. She whispered, You don't understand what this costs. Then tell me, I said. Tell me to leave, and I will. She didn't. Instead, she pressed her palms against my chest, trembling. You make everything feel too close, she whispered. Like I can't breathe without remembering what I gave up. Her eyes glistened, not from tears, but something heavier. I spent years learning how to want less, she said. And then you showed up. I didn't move. Couldn't. She looked down, hands still flat against my chest, fingers curling slightly in the fabric of my shirt. You shouldn't have come tonight. You knocked on my door. I know, she said. That's the problem. The silence between us was no longer empty. It pulsed. Her breath brushed against my collarbone, mine caught somewhere between fear and need. She reached up, her fingers finding my jaw, tentative, testing the boundary we'd redrawn 100 times and broken anyway. You don't know what I'm capable of when I stop caring what people think. Show me, I whispered. Her lips parted, barely an inch away now. I could feel the warmth of her breath, the soft tremor in her hands. She closed her eyes like she was bracing for something inevitable. Then, just before she crossed that final inch, she stopped. Her forehead rested against mine. If I do this, she whispered, I'll start hoping again. And I don't survive hope anymore. I swallowed hard. Then don't hope. Just stay. She laughed, a small, broken sound that wasn't really laughter. You're too young to know that staying can be the hardest thing. Her voice faltered. Then she looked at me, really looked, and something shifted. The fear softened. The guard dropped. Every time I try to forget you, she said, I remember how it felt when you said my name. And then, finally, she kissed me. Not the way I'd imagined, not hungry, not desperate. Just slow. Careful. Like she was allowing herself to exist for the first time in years. When she pulled back, her hand lingered against my cheek. Now you understand, she whispered. I do. And for once, there was no need to say anything more. Morning came soft and slow, like it didn't want to wake us. The rain had finally stopped, leaving everything damp and silver under the early light. Through her kitchen window, the world looked almost new, like it was holding its breath with us. Clara stood by the counter barefoot, her robe loosely tied. She was quiet, hands wrapped around a mug that had long gone cold. I sat on the edge of a chair, unsure if I should say anything first. Everything that had felt impossible the night before now simply was. No explanations left to chase. No secrets left to hold. You're staring, she said softly, without turning. Sorry, I murmured. Don't be. She smiled faintly, then looked down at her hands. I'm just trying to remember what it's like not to brace for disappointment. Her honesty caught me off guard, the same way it always did. I stood, stepping closer, until I could see the faint outline of raindrops clinging to her hair. You don't have to, I said. Not with me. She looked up, eyes searching mine. You say that like you've never been left before. I've been ignored, I said. That's worse. Something in her softened. She reached out, hesitantly at first, and rested her fingers on mine. You shouldn't have to fix the things someone else broke. I'm not trying to fix you. Then what are you doing? I smiled. Just staying. The clock ticked faintly in the other room. The house smelled like tea and rain and the faint warmth of something new. She stepped closer, her hand tracing the sleeve of my shirt as if memorizing it. You'll make people talk, she whispered. Let them, I said. She laughed, a real one this time, unguarded, beautiful. Then she shook her head, looking down. You have no idea how much that scares me. Then I'll be here until it doesn't. For a moment neither of us moved. Then, almost shyly, she leaned into me, forehead resting against my chest, her hands gripping the fabric like she didn't trust it to stay. I wrapped my arms around her, feeling her exhale against me, slow, deep, trembling. This shouldn't work, she murmured. Maybe not, I said. But it does. She tilted her head back, meeting my eyes. The space between us filled with something quiet and certain, the kind of closeness that didn't need to prove itself anymore. Her thumb brushed along my jaw, her lips pressing softly to my cheek. It wasn't a kiss for want, it was one for staying. Later, we sat on the porch together, watching the sky clear. She handed me her tea, and when our fingers touched, either of us pulled away. No more hiding. No more pretending this was a phase or mistake. Just two people who'd finally stopped running from the thing that scared them most, being seen. She smiled, sunlight catching in her hair. Guess you really were my favorite distraction. I laughed, the sound easier now. Not anymore. No? Now I'm your reason to stay. Her hand tightened gently around mine. Maybe you always were.